If countries have decided that they want to move away from the dollar, they're going to move away from the dollar. It doesn't really matter what Donald Trump threatens. Now, they may not form their own currency. In fact, they already announced even before the election, and I talked about it from that last Brics summit that took place in Russia, that they had no short-term intention of creating another currency, but they did want to do more trade amongst themselves with their own currencies and not the dollar. And there is no way that Donald Trump is going to stop that from happening. He can't force China and Russia to invoice each other in dollars for bilateral trade. Why can't they trade in rubles or yuan? Right. And that's what they're going to do.
Gold pulled back at the start of the trading week after President-elect Donald Trump threatened to raise 100% tariffs on the Brics trading bloc of nations if they proceed with plans to replace the USD with their own currency. President-elect Donald Trump said he would require countries in the Brics group, a China and Russia-backed group of emerging economies, to commit to not creating new currency or face 100% tariffs during his administration. An independent investment advisor, PeterSchiff, critiqued Donald Trump's threats to the Brics nations over moving away from the US dollar, arguing that such actions undermine confidence in the dollar's strength. While analyzing the market, Peter states that Trump's concerns about de-dollarization show awareness of its potential economic harm. He argues threats won't stop nations like China and Russia from trading in their own currencies, accelerating the shift away from the dollar. Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexei Overchuk said on Wednesday that about 92% of trade settlements between Russia and China are now conducted in Russian rubles and Chinese yuan. The announcement was made at the ongoing Boao Forum for Asia in South China's Hainan province. It has even been suggested that Russia could develop its own gold-backed Brics currency for trading purposes. As recent research by RAND has shown, over the last 20 years, Russia's central bank has acquired nearly 2,000 tons of gold, more than any other country by a wide margin. Moreover, the state regularly adds to a vault controlled by the Ministry of Finance, which holds an undisclosed amount of gold and precious stones that can be used at Russian President Vladimir Putin's discretion. Regarding gold's future, PeterSchiff disagreed with Trump's claim that the U.S. is losing in trade. However, he said other countries lose by trading real goods for dollars, which cost little to produce, and that this system benefits the U.S. more. Now, we present the clips of PeterSchiff's insights from his recent interview. Before we continue to discuss this, please subscribe to our channel and activate the bell icon for timely updates.
Donald Trump had a post on Truth Social. I only found out about it because somebody, reposted it on X. I don't really spend any time. In fact, I've never been on Truth Social. I'm not really sure how many people are there, but obviously somebody was there because they posted this on X. But I'm going to read you Donald Trump's post. Here's what he said. The idea that the BRIC countries are trying to move away from the dollar while we stand by and watch is over, and over is all caps. We require a commitment from these countries that they will neither create a new BRICS currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty US dollar, or they will face 100% tariffs and should expect to say goodbye to selling into the wonderful US economy. They can go find another sucker, in quotes, with an exclamation point. There is no chance that the BRICS will replace the US dollar in international trade, and any country that tries should wave goodbye to America. Now, there's so many problems with this post. First of all, I don't think it's going to resonate very well with the BRIC nations when, Trump is threatening them the way they are. But if the US dollar really were as mighty as Donald Trump seems to think it is, he wouldn't have to threaten the world if they stopped using it. They would want to use it. If the dollar was so great and so strong, then it would just stand on its own. I mean, people would just want it. They would want to accumulate dollars. We wouldn't have to force anybody. We wouldn't have to twist their arms or try to blackmail them into holding the dollar. They would just hold it. Now, the fact that Donald Trump is worried about the BRICS moving away from the dollar at least shows you that he's smart enough to recognize how bad it would be for the United States if they were to move away from the dollar. Just shows that the dollar is not as strong and almighty as Donald Trump claims it is if he's so worried about the consequences of the world moving away from it. And Trump must know this. Our entire economy depends on the dollar as a reserve currency. Now, the fact that Trump is making these threats is not going to slow the de-dollarization process. If countries have decided that they want to move away from the dollar, they're going to move away from the dollar. It doesn't really matter what Donald Trump threatens. Now, they may not form their own currency. In fact, they already announced even before the election, and I talked about it from that last Brics summit that took place in Russia, that they had no short-term intention of creating another currency, but they did want to do more trade amongst themselves with their own currencies and not the dollar. And there is no way that Donald Trump is going to stop that from happening. He can't force China and Russia to invoice each other in dollars for bilateral trade. Why can't they trade in rubles or yuan, right? Yet they get the paper dollars. He's got it backwards. It's China. It's the rest of the world. Those are the suckers. Those are the patsies. They're getting paper. We're getting real goods that make our lives better, and they get paper. Those real goods, require devoting a lot of resources, land, labor, capital, right? Equipment, buildings, lots of stuff goes in to producing the goods that we consume. Nothing goes into producing the dollars that they get. We create them out of thin air. It costs us nothing. So who's the sucker in this relationship? The country that gets all this great stuff, or the countries that get fiat currency?
According to the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, Trump's combination of tax cuts, tariff increases, military expansion, and mass deportations would widen budget deficits by an estimated $7.5 trillion over the next decade. In his analysis, PeterSchiff criticizes Trump's plan, saying it would worsen deficits due to offsetting tax cuts and rising debt interest. Trump has bold ideas on tax cuts and tariffs, but high interest rates and the price of repaying the federal government's existing debt could limit what he can do. Not only is the federal debt at roughly $36 trillion, but the spike in inflation after the coronavirus pandemic has pushed up the government's borrowing costs, such that next year's debt service will easily exceed national security spending. Furthermore, Peter contends that balancing the budget through tariffs alone is unrealistic without cuts, especially with interest payments expected to surpass $2 trillion annually by 2026. Let's get back to the interview.
And my point is, I think Americans are overtaxed. So I'm not excited about new taxes. I want less spending. I want the government to cut its spending. If we just impose new taxes, that's not the direction I want to go in. Now, are higher taxes better than big deficits? Yes, but Trump is not going to use the tariffs to lower the deficit because he's going to cut other taxes. So we're going to get bigger deficits and we're going to get tariffs, right? So it's not going to work. That's why I'm criticizing him. Yes, I would like to go back to a country where the federal government only collects indirect taxes, which would be tariffs and other excise taxes like a cigarette tax or, a tobacco tax or a liquor tax or a firearm tax, stuff like that. If we went back to that, yes, I'd be very happy, but we can't go back to that unless we eliminate a lot of government programs that Trump, took off the table. We can't have Social Security, Medicare, Obamacare, this huge national defense budget, pay all the interest on the national debt and finance it all with tariffs. We just can't do it. So the only way we can get to a nation, a federal government that's going to exist on excise taxes the way it did 100 years ago is to get rid of all these programs that we didn't have 100 years ago to pay for. And so that's where my criticism of tariffs is coming in. The other one is this government spending, right? I mean, even, Elon Musk was talking about, we're going to cut $2 trillion out of the budget, which is ridiculous. The government spends $7 trillion. There's no way that that Elon Musk and Ramaswamy could get $2 trillion of cuts out of $7 when 80% of it is off the table, right? Again, no cuts to Social Security, no cuts to defense, no cuts to Medicare. He pledged not to touch Obamacare. I mean, maybe they could get a little bit out of Medicare, but I don't think he wants to go after healthcare at all. So there's only about 1.4 trillion left. So even if he eliminated everything else the government does, he doesn't come close to getting interest on the national debt, assuming interest rates just stay where they are, because they actually could go a lot higher. But interest on the national debt is about 1.1 trillion right now per year. By the end of Trump's first year in office, so January 2026, interest on the national debt will be at least 2 trillion a year. So 900 billion more than it is now. There is no way that the fake Department of Government Efficiency could even make enough recommendations to come close to offsetting that increase on its own, just rising interest, let alone Congress actually vote to approve those draconian reductions in government spending. Meanwhile, the tax cuts that Trump is in favor of will more than offset the tariffs that the government collects. So the deficits are going to go up even without the increase in interest on the debt, which will far outstrip any saving that they can make in the federal budget from waste, fraud, and abuse, as identified by the Department of Government officials.
The BRICS has been steadily reducing its reliance on the US dollar as a medium of exchange, using the currencies of its members instead. Trump's warning threatens to derail their plans if members become fearful of the fallout of a global trade war with the US, which could also be weighing on the gold price. Do you believe the US can sustain its economic dominance if the BRICS nations successfully reduce their reliance on the dollar? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. If you find this video informative, don't forget to support our channel and turn on notifications to stay informed about our latest videos. See you in the next video.